Welcome to Study Loop.
This question is asking us to think about the concepts of biodiversity and biomes. Essentially, we are being asked to judge whether or not the conceptual models that we use in biology in order to understand and characterize the world around us are good fits for describing every aspect of the world and biology. Um, but first, let's begin by thinking about what a biome is. So, biomes, I've illustrated an example here, are basically massive geographic areas that share certain ecological and climate related relationships. And as such, a lot of animal and plant life are very similar between biomes of the same type. Deserts are an example of a biome. Another example, as I've shown here, are the terrestrial forests, or the deciduous forests, as they're sometimes called. Um, and now think about it for just a moment here. There are certain plant and animal species and wildlife that are shared across these two regions. For instance, foxes and squirrels, or you're going to find those both in North America and in Europe. Um, but not all biomes of the same type necessarily share the same types of life. They might share a lot of other characteristics, thus, making it easy to put them as the same biome, but they might not share everything, and there might be some biodiversity that is being hidden among that. A good example is in certain deserts, such as those in the Americas, you're more likely to find a lot of cacti, whereas in deserts in West Africa, there are some places that have absolutely no or very few species of cacti. And that's a pretty big difference in terms of thinking about biodiversity, which is all about the types and the number of different species of organisms in a certain area. And so now that we've sort of laid out those differences, let's now think about what the best option is that we are given. Because some of them are worded differently than others, but some of them convey very similar ideas, so it's necessary to break down which one is the closest to the most nuanced take on this question. I think we can immediately delete options A and D, because both of them actually rely on false or incomplete understandings of what a biome is. Option A only includes terrestrial organisms, which is false. Biomes are also counted. There are also biomes in aquatic regions, so that is already incorrect. Option D is also incorrect, because yes, sometimes the dominant vegetation is a good way to characterize biomes. It's not one of the only ways. It's also not relevant to the question itself, because that's not considering the differences between biomes of the same type. So that leaves us with B and C. So let's take a look. With option B, it is technically true. However, it isn't addressing what the question is asking us to do. All this is saying is that there is biodiversity within a single biome. So if we're going to go back to the example I drew up here, there is biodiversity in terrestrial forests, basically, not between these two terrestrial forest biomes on different continents, which again is a valid statement, but not what we're looking for. We're looking for something that will talk about why we should consider biodiversity within biomes of the same type in different geographic regions. The only one that does that is option C. And if we take a look at the wording, it becomes really apparent. This is the only term that, or the only question option that uses the term variation within the different types of biomes. And it's that variation within that biome categorization, quote unquote, doesn't capture, that is what not only reflects what we've just discussed, but also answers what the question is looking for. The question is looking for, again, why it is that biome categorization is not the be-all end-all of explaining biodiversity at the biome level. So with that note, C is our final answer.